Hello and welcome to HexBoard Firmware 1.3. This update dramatically expands the onboard synth, improves responsiveness across the system, and adds major quality of life upgrades throughout the HexBoard experience. So get ready. We're going to jump in and I'll show you through all the menus, things that have changed and just what's there currently. All right, so we're going to start with the tuning. In here, you can select whatever tunings we have available. There are a lot of options here if you want to go outside the standard 12 tones. And on top of that, you could do dynamic just intonation, which bases it off of the current held note. It gets the next ratio, like the next nearest ratios when you press the other notes. It's rather fun to play with. And then you have a just intonation BPM sync, where the beating of the frequencies is to a certain rhythm, and you can pick what that BPM is. Anyway, let's go on back out of here to the next thing. So each tuning has layouts and scales associated with it. So let's go into layouts. I'm just doing 12 tone stuff, but you have Wiki Hayden is the standard for a 12 EDO because it's built for this. And you can do things like harmonic table, and then it rotates the display showing you that you turn your device to have the layout like that. There are many different layouts. They all arrange the notes differently and are useful for different things. Let's go into scales. In scales, you can set what key you're in. So the key, you can change it. And oh yeah, here's a new feature in 1.3 is that as you're turning these menu items, they live update. You don't have to click it a second time to have it show what's happening, but you're changing which C is lit up here. Now, another thing that you're seeing when I'm pressing keys is when you press a button, it tells you what note is playing. So you don't have to guess or like look at a chart or anything to find out what note's playing. You can just press the button and it will show you the notes that you're playing. And if you play a chord, it shows you what chord you're playing. Here, it's a D, or D minor, or D sustained, or G sustained drop D. Listen, I don't quite understand all this stuff, but you can learn chords here. It's fun. All right. Next thing we can do in here is we can pick a scale. So if I pick a scale, boom, you see it dims the keys that are out of scale. You can still, however, play notes that are out of scale. But if you want to, you can set scale lock, which blanks them out completely. And now you can't play any notes outside the scale. Now, you guys aren't hearing anything yet, so I will go ahead and turn on the synthesizer. Let's jump into here quick before I go back to colors, because this is where I've added a lot of changes in 1.3. Okay, so let's go ahead and set it to poly. So we have our polyphonic synthesizer. And that sounds very boring right now. I'll go ahead and make it a little more interesting though. Let's load up the strings waveform. Still rather boring, but we have an envelope on here, so we can do attack, hold, decay, sustain. So your attack changes how long it takes to ramp in. So I can set it to 750 milliseconds, and it fades in slowly. Okay, let's go ahead. The hold is where the volume level holds after jumping up. It holds at a certain level for X amount of milliseconds, and then it goes into the decay. So the decay, the decay won't do anything unless you set the sustain lower. So right now it sustains at 100% volume. But if we set sustain down to, say, 10%, it jumps down. So the decay is going very quickly. So it goes up and then down. So let's go ahead and increase the decay and decrease the attack. So it's going to be a quick attack followed by a longer decay. And it sounds more like that. So your hold, if you wanted to, you could have it hold for, let's say, hold for 500 milliseconds. And it waits a little bit before dropping. That's more useful when it comes to the effects envelopes. Well, we'll get to that. And then finally, release is how long it takes after you let go of the note for it to let go of the sound completely. So if I set release up to, say, 1.5 seconds, it takes a while for the sound to release from there. So that's your ADSR and some basics on how it works. I'll quick dial in something that will be more fun to listen to. You know what? I think set it to a pretty quick attack, no hold, and a shorter decay, but higher sustain. All right, there we go. Next, we have the effects envelopes. So we actually have 2 more envelopes, but these can be used to attach to different things. So in here, you can attach it to vibrato. So let's say we want, I think I have to set it to a negative for this to work, but essentially when the envelope goes up to the top, vibrato doesn't happen. If it's set to positive, when the envelope goes up, vibrato starts occurring. But I'll show you how I want to do this. So let's set it to negative 25% for now. And then the attack will set to 0. So it's going to start at the top. Hold will be 0. Or actually, no, hold will be, let's say, 500 milliseconds. Then decay will set to, let's say, a second and a half. Okay, so over the course of 2 seconds, it will hold for a half second. Then for 1.5 seconds, it will drop into the vibrato. Then release will also increase to be about the same as the hold, or as the sustain. Yeah. So. And that little stutter there is just the settings saving. So anytime you make changes, there's an automatic save that happens. Now, if I wanted to, I could even shorten the release. So if I play notes very briefly, the vibrato starts happening quickly after you let go. So because, whoa, at the end when you let go of a note, even if it hasn't reached the full decay on there. Kind of fun stuff you can do with that. But then another thing I've added on top of that is the second effects envelope. And you can do things with it. You can target the pitch, or my favorite thing here is targeting the tone. So this does a phase warp on the sound. And let's go ahead and start by adding an attack and some decay to it. Make it a longer decay, maybe a second. Yeah. And then a longer release for it too. All right, here we go. So you can get much more expressive sounds out of it now that you have this tone parameter, because it's just so much more fun to work with. On top of that, you could assign to a pitch, and you could have your notes woo into the note, or woo, have some weird pitch moving around on those envelopes, just like that. But these are the things that I have gotten the most use out of here. Let's go ahead and put that back to tone, okay? And I want to make it less extreme, so I'm going to bring the amount down to 67% sounds pretty good. So we'll leave it there and go on to the next thing. Next thing I have added here that I could show you is metronome. So if you turn this on, you can get yourself a metronome. If anybody has piano lesson flashbacks, it's okay. Take a deep breath. Your teacher's not right here, okay? You're safe. You're safe. All right. Anyway, we're going to, you can have that metronome beeping to practice with, or you can have the brightness blinking, and you can also have the side buttons blinking if you prefer. I find the beep most useful, but you have options. Enjoy them. And then you can set what the time signature is down here. So you want to do 5/4 or something like that. Cool. You can set the tempo right here. All right, now I'll turn that off. That's enough of that. Anyway, when you have synth presets that you like, say you've come up with something that's really fun, you can go ahead to save preset, and then you have 8 slots here, and you can just save it right into the slot, and then you can load that up anytime. You can load up that one, or you could load up a different synth preset, whichever one you want, just to have fun things to practice with. Anyway, that's the synth. There's also monophonic mode and arpeggio mode, and you can change you know, the speed of the arpeggio. You can make it things like that, but that hasn't really changed much since the last release. This is what we have here. Anyway, I'll set it back to poly mode and we'll carry on. So color options, right? I wanted to go back to our scales, turn off scale lock so we can access all the buttons. And if we go here and to our color options, we have color mode, so you can choose rainbow, diatonic, which very useful when you're in microtonal modes. You can see the shape of your diatonic scale much more easily. Is that what it's called? Whatever. It's easier to see what notes you're supposed to play. And yeah, several fun color options in here to choose from. In 12 EDO, I find rainbow to be most useful for me. When you're in larger EDOs, though, something like 31, you're going to want to pick a different color mode. Otherwise, it's really hard to tell what you're doing. Next, you can set the brightness to very bright, and as you turn it, it changes as you turn it instead of having to turn and click like before. Big improvement. Next thing is LED limit, which I've added based on the fact that if you max out the LEDs, you can crash the board and stuff. You know, it's not going to break anything, but depending on how good your power supply is, it might not be able to manage it. So I calibrated all this to a current readings thing that I had. So if you set this LED limit, this will set the power limit on the USB port for you. If you have a great power supply, you might be able to get 3 amps through here on a good cable, good power supply. If you want to test your luck, you can turn it off and crank things up. It will probably crash though if you're pushing things. So 1.5 I found is pretty safe for most things. But if you have a really weak power supply, you can set it as low as 250 milliamps. And then when things light up, like say you have a splash animation, when I start mashing keys, everything will start to dim to sort of make up for the fact that other ones are brighter, so that the total current draw stays below 250 milliamps. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for people on more limited hardware. We also have all the animations, and you can easily preview through them. So, you know, just show the button, have the animation off so it doesn't change. Octaves, where it shows you all the octave notes. We also have by note, so you can see these two notes are the same. So any duplicates shows you where they are. Really useful when you're trying to do hand over hand, like connecting one thing to the next. And then we have star, which is real fun. Splash. Also, you know, these are just for fun. Orbit, beams. I can turn off my LED limit. You can see it's really kicking in there. There we go. Get our animations back. And then R splash, R star, and then MIDI in, which you can send MIDI notes into the HexBoard and it will light them up. Great for practicing different things, you know, learning a melody by watching it on the keys and then playing it that way. Next thing we have there, though, is rest bright and dim bright. So rest bright is the keys at rest. So you can change these to be dimmer. So you want to set it really dim, but you want to have your brightness maxed out. Well, when you play a key, oh baby, you get some contrast, okay? So that's a lot of fun. I like to keep it down at low because that's fun. The dim brightness here is adjusting the keys that are out of scale. So you can set them, you know, set them extra dim if you want. You can even have them completely off, even though you're not in scale lock mode. But that's available for you to adjust however you wish. I'll set them both to low right now so that we can get high contrast. I will set this to star so it's slightly less crazy. Anyway, and set the light down a little bit. Onward. Now, in MIDI options, we have the option to change our MIDI channel. We could change the MPE mode. So when you're playing microtonally, it's sending out MIDI notes plus a pitch bend on separate channels. And it's doing this through MPE. So each note has its own MIDI channel and its own pitch bend to bend the notes correctly. It works with a good number of synths and DAWs, but some things don't work with it. And sometimes you'll want to configure your own tuning on your computer, with your own software. And so in those cases, you can turn it off. You can disable it. And then what happens is all of the notes are just 0 through 120 or 1 through 128. And then once you get to the top of the channel range, say you're using a larger EDO, when you run out of notes, it goes up to the next channel and onward. And then you can use it with other things and map it that way. And you can set, when you are using MPE, you set the bend range here, which you can use for your synthesizers. 48 is default for MPE pitch bend. But if you want higher resolution, you can set it down to 1 semitone up or down. And that can give you more precise rendering of the notes. But 48 is a good default. It's plenty accurate for most things. And then you could set your MPE low channel, so you could set the range of the notes that are used when you're doing microtonal playing. So by default, it uses channels 2 through 16. So you have 15 notes of polyphony. If you want to set it up where you have multiple synths, you don't have MPE, but you use multiple synths, you can have one synth set to each MIDI channel, and the pitch bends affect them, and it'll work just fine. But sometimes you don't need to play all 15 notes, and so you don't want to make 15 duplicates of the synth. You could set your range to be a lot smaller. You could just do channels 12 through 16 or something like that. Extra MPE just adds some extra values that were useful on certain synthesizers. I think the Haken Continuum, that one, it was useful to send these like CC74 values with it in order to get it to sound nicer. Then you also have these Roland MT32 things. These are just, what's it called? It's where you're selecting what instrument is being played. And so like on an old MIDI keyboard, you might be able to use this to just like dial in some default MIDI sounds, which is useful in some cases. It's more of a niche thing though. Anyway, there's a lot of niche things on this, let me tell you. Next thing is control wheels. So on here, we call these the control wheels. They are virtual wheels. When you press in the middle, it drags it down toward the middle. When you press at the bottom, it pulls it down to the bottom. So here's our velocity wheel. If we set it to too slow, you can hold down and then it slowly moves the velocity down, slowly moves it up. You press 2 buttons and it gets the value between them. But that moves it very slowly. If you want to be instant, you can snap instantly to those different values. But medium is what it's set to, which is actually quite fast. I'm going to be slowing that down in a future update. So you can do that for all the different wheels. This is mod wheel right here. You tap that button in the middle and now you have a pitch bend. So there's your mod wheel. And then you see that the pitch bend and mod wheel have springy selected. If you want, you can set it to sticky. And then it will stick to the value you pull it to. Otherwise, if you set it to sticky or springy, it bounces back to the bottom, or the pitch bend bounces back to the center position, the neutral position by default. So that is the control wheels. Next, you have transpose. You can transpose however you want. Very easy. You can save your current, this is how I have everything set up. By default, it just auto saves to the boot/autosave slot. So that's what it starts up to. You can also save to different slots. Say you have a performance slot that you want to have ready for when you're playing a certain song or things like that. You could set it up so that it's, it has all your settings just the way you like, without having to mess with everything else. So you could save and load those slots there. Advanced menu, you could see what firmware and what hardware version you have. You can invert the encoder if you want. Some different encoders would turn the opposite way, so had to add it. You could color by key, which I have that on by default. When you change the key, the color follows your root note around. if you turn that off, the color sticks to where it is, even when you change the root note. Now, next is display notes. You could turn this one off, but it shows you these notes and chord when you're in 12 EDO. When you're in microtonal modes, it shows you the scale degree number and what octave it's in. So you could turn off display notes if you don't like this, then it doesn't interrupt the screen at all. Next thing is boot animation. You saw it when I started up the video. It's pretty cool. If you hate things like that though, you can turn it off. It's okay. It won't hurt you. No one has to even mention anything about it after that. All right. Next, you can reset your default settings. You can update the firmware, and then there's all these other advanced things, that I was using in testing. And then another thing, LED test. This is just for, when I'm testing these boards out, I want to make sure all the LEDs are working. Wow, red works, green works, blue works, and all of them work together. Amazing. Good for diagnosing if anything's wrong there, or being very harsh mood lighting. And I think I've covered everything. That's all I have in this for now. But let me tell you, I'm already working on the next firmware update, and it has more cool synth stuff, more waveforms, and I might be working on a web editor for making layouts and synth patches. Look out for that, okay? Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.